Let's get this party started.
You ever notice how Christmas movies just don't seem to hit the same anymore? They don't feel the same, and not in a you're older now different kind of way, but a something is missing kind of different. There was a time when Christmas movies weren't just background noise. They were actual events, and they were taken seriously and treated with love and respect. You didn't ask if you were going to watch Home Alone or Christmas Vacation or It's a Wonderful Life every year. You asked when you were going to watch them. They were part of the season itself, like decorations, like Christmas cards, Christmas trees, like sitting on the floor and wrapping presents and while the TV glowed in your living room. And somewhere along the line, that magic broke. Not overnight, and not because of one bad movie or even a couple of bad movies, but because the culture that made Christmas movies matter disappeared. From the 80s to the early 2000s, Christmas movies lived inside our shared pop culture. I talk about it all the time here on the channel. Everybody watched the same things at the same time on the same screens, whether that was in the theater or at home in your living room on the little TV screen. If a Christmas movie came out, it didn't compete with thousands of other options on streaming or an algorithm or anywhere else. It was the option. That's how movies like Home Alone or Scrooged or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation or The Santa Claus or A Christmas Story or It's a Wonderful Life or even all the way up to How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 2000 and Elf became generational touchstones. They became part of the public zeitgeist. They didn't just succeed financially, they embedded themselves into our collective memories, and you could reference a line or something at school or work and everyone would get it. That's monoculture. That is a shared pop culture experience that unites us together, and Christmas movies thrived on that. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The last wave of truly maybe iconic Christmas movies ever was over 20 years ago. And it really kind of ended with How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey and Elf in the early 2000s. And you had maybe the final Santa Claus in the trilogy there, Santa Claus Part 3, that tied back to the others. But since then, nothing has really joined the canon to that level. I think there's a couple that have had that sincerity that have a chance, and we'll talk about them. But the reason these movies haven't succeeded, because there's still been a lot of them since then, is so it's not because studios stopped making Christmas movies. They make a lot of them. In fact, when you factor in like Hallmark and Netflix and all that stuff, they make a ton. But none of them stick. They come and go. They trend for a couple of days, or you see a commercial, then they vanish. And that's not an accident. The truth is, streaming has largely killed the shared experience. I say it all the time, but streaming didn't just change how we watch movies, it changed what movies can become. Back in the day, Christmas season all the way through Christmas morning meant you turned on the TV and you watched what was on. That meant the whole family together, one screen, one movie. But now everyone disappears into their own algorithm. Kids on tablets, teenagers on phones, parents scrolling menus, grandparents watching something else entirely. Christmas movies used to be catch-all films. Now they're no one's first choice. Like, they used to bring everyone together. That was what you could agree on. But now, I was just talking to someone on this channel. It's like kids want to watch the same things they can watch any day of the year, because there's nothing. We've lost that sense of specialness about these movies and TV shows in this time of year. And when movies aren't designed to bring everyone together, that's what you're going to get. Studios stopped making them with the care and reverence that they had before. Why spend $150 million on a Christmas movie when it'll be buried in a streaming carousel in a couple of weeks? Why take risks on sincerity when irony and self-awareness and meta and cynicism and, oh, we're all in on the joke kind of stuff is what's in style? Everything has become so pessimistic, so preachy, so agenda driven, so cynical overall. We're deconstructing every hero, deconstructing Santa Claus. We're deconstructing this, deconstructing that, and elevating villains as misunderstood, and all of this kind of stuff. Instead of clear messaging that brings everyone together, that is the foundation of storytelling. And right now it's what plays better online, and that's the cynicism. That's you get more views, more attention with negativity and being a smart aleck and all that kind of stuff, and that's what they're leaning into, and that just inherently does not fit with Christmas. And that kind of goes into the next spot, which is the death of sincerity, the death of earnestness, the death of reverence. That's the biggest cultural shift that no one talks about. It's like sincerity in the things that matter, became outdated and no good and something to be mocked. Over the last 15 years or so, this has really gotten bad. Movies have trained audiences to laugh at the heartfelt moments. They're almost cringe-worthy. So good, honest, feel-good kind of cheese in a Christmas movie became cringe, and faith became outdated, hope became naive, and family became corny and something to mock and get away from. Everything has to be so self-aware. Everything has to wink at the audience. Christmas movies just do not work that way. They need earnestness and sincerity. They need warmth, unapologetic emotion. You cannot mock the message while delivering it, or the film is not going to work. You can't tell us love matters and then immediately undercut it with a joke. Christmas movies aren't supposed to just be cool and ironic and cynical. They're supposed to be sincere, and modern cinema forgot how to be sincere. And if that wasn't enough, there is the whole streaming look and the quality drop. Now, I have a huge video. If it's your first time here, I'm a professional filmmaker for over 20 years. I have a video that I've been working on for a long time that's going to come out in January on why movies look and feel different now. And this is where we get streaming that kind of knocks Christmas movies down a little bit more. They look like streaming movies. They almost all movies today have that streaming look. They're very flat, glossy, overlit, and fake. None of that plays for Christmas. Well, why do they do that? Largely, it's because people don't know. You're using digital. People don't know real old school filmmaking techniques anymore. They're just trying to crank content out fast. And the rise of digital, the fix it in post, that leans itself to shooting everything with flat lighting, no contrast, less colors, all of that stuff, having your subject very focused in the foreground, everything else lost. That way they can change anything digitally later that they want to change. So that kind of takes a realness away from them. Christmas movies used to feel real. Even when the premise was absurd, they looked and felt real. Shot on film, carefully lit, planned, all of that. Now everything is just, we can fix it later, light it flat, we can put a window over there later in post, we can change their clothes in post, we can do this, we can do that. Sometimes they start shooting these movies when scripts aren't even finished. Too many cooks in the kitchen, checking boxes about what's going to fit into the algorithm, what's going to fit with not being, exclusionary over here or this or that. Just too much stuff, too many notes, too many guardrails, too much vanity lighting. And the result, movies that feel like high budget, slick commercials instead of stories about people and the things that matter. It's hard to have a warm, fuzzy feeling when the movie looks like it has an Instagram filter over it. That's just a fact. And then there's why big Christmas blockbuster movies even fail now. Studios keep trying to revive the Christmas blockbuster, but they keep bringing all that other stuff I've mentioned with it. And that's why they fail. Even with big stars, big budgets, big marketing, they keep failing because they do not want to commit to the sincerity. It's like the reason for the season and everything that goes with it is an embarrassment. That they believe audiences don't believe in anything anymore, and they're going to push their lack of belief into it. When you see a Christmas movie, especially if you go to the theaters to see a Christmas movie nowadays, you assume it's going to be streaming in a week. So what's the point? Why invest emotionally? Why, when nothing feels permanent? It's so fleeting. Christmas movies became disposable content like movies overall, and it really, really changes how you feel about a Christmas movie, because once that happens, the magic is gone. And then there's why the ones today that have worked, really do work. And now we got to go back to like the early 2000s for the most part, though there's a couple that I think they're recent that have brought that back. It's fascinating, kind of. The most successful modern ones like Elf, Grinch with Jim Carrey, Violent Night even, Daddy's Home 2, which had a $60 million budget and made $260 million worldwide. Why do these few succeed? You could even throw Red One in there a little bit, because it made $190 million at the theater. Now that's against a $200 million budget, but it was also available on streaming pretty much at the same time. So it did pretty well overall. But those others, particularly that I mentioned, Daddy's Home 2, Violent Night, Grinch 2000, and Elf, those have done really well. But why? Because they look backwards, okay? Elf channels classic Christmas optimism with all the Rankin Bass feels. Jon Favreau made that movie inspired by Rudolph. He put the claymation in there. It feels old school, and it has that nostalgic connection. The Grinch 2000 feels like a big 90s studio Christmas movie taken seriously. Beautiful sets, practical, building a whole Whoville, all that kind of stuff, but it still leans on the original Christmas classic, and that ties back to the nostalgia and pop culture that we shared. And then you have Daddy's Home 2, which said, okay, we're going to embrace the concepts of what's not working today, where you have kids invested in their phones and disconnected to their parents, and the generational gap between boomers, Gen X, and millennials and Gen Z all in one house, and how we can the differences that shows, and then how we can find common ground together. It embraced all the problems and showed that you can get over them with a great cast. So you have all of those connections. And then you have Violent Night. It goes back to our nostalgia too. It brings back Home Alone. It references it. There's basically a Home Alone sequence in the movie. It brings back Die Hard. It references Die Hard in the movie. Christmas Vacation, it references that. It brings back Beverly D'Angelo. All of that stuff, it pulls from the old school 80s, 90s DNA, and back before that, even the Rankin Bass DNA. They succeeded because they remind us of a time when Christmas movies meant something. Even Violent Night, it brings back all that nostalgia for those movies. But the message at the end about belief and faith and Christmas spirit and how it can heal us and help us is huge. It's an antidote to cynicism, that movie is. Even Santa Claus starts out as giving up, and then he is shown. And that's what the movie embraces. These movies didn't mock the past. They celebrated it, and audiences responded to them. But they're so few and far between because studio execs and stuff, they're so worried about offending anyone. They're so worried about offending anyone with the real meaning of Christmas. All of these things they can't get past. So they can't make a Christmas movie what it's supposed to be. But here is the good news. There is signs out there. There are signs that the tide is turning. And something is beginning to change out there. More and more athletes and actors and writers and directors and stuff, they've said, look, we got to get back to making movies. We can't keep doing this stuff. Everything is starting to change, and more of that is going to be embraced again. And I think you can still see it. You see a society hungry for sincerity. Everything can't be cynicism all the time. That's why, personally, I don't think the James Gunn DC universe is going to work that well. Because it's just not. Everything is cynical, truth, justice, whatever. Like all that. Cynicism only works, and deconstruction of heroes only works well when everything else is going the other way. When everything else is all super positive and hope and everything in every movie and heroes, then you have a counterbalance. Right now, for a decade and a half, we've had no counterbalance to deconstructed heroes, to political messaging, to cynicism, to cringe-worthy, to mocking the past, having no reverence. So more of that is just old white noise. People are craving sincerity again. I even saw Rain Johnson say that he feels it in the air. When I'm not the biggest fan of his at all, but he's like, look, I feel like something's got to change. I feel like in the air, people want more sincerity. They want more of a focus on faith and feelings and bringing back things that matter. People are burned out on irony and cynicism. They're burned out on franchises in a lot of ways. They're burned out on empty content. And culturally, like I was saying, there's a renewed interest in faith, family, tradition, connection, and it's really came on the past year or so. And when you have directors like Rain Johnson and James Cameron and stuff like that pointing it out, and actors saying, hey, we got to get back to making other kind of movies again, that lets you know it's really starting to resonate. Those are the very things that Christmas movies were built on, and they're right there. They're coming back. So there is a chance, and that is the great news. So really, it's not Christmas movies that ever failed us. It's not them. It's not that Christmas movies stopped working, right? It's that we stopped making them with belief and reverence and love. We traded shared experience and nostalgia and pop culture and monoculture for algorithms and cynicism, sincerity for sarcasm, togetherness for convenience. But the desire for those things never went away. The feelings, the warmth, the longing of a shared tradition to be happy and safe and content, it is all still there. And if the studios remember that Christmas movies aren't content, they are rituals, they are connective tissue to our society, we might really finally see real Christmas classics come about again. And when that happens, we will all know it when we see it, because we'll all be watching the same thing together for Christmas. And that's what I got for you this time. I hope you enjoyed it. We are getting close to Christmas. I have some big Christmas lists coming out, the most underrated Christmas movies of all time, some awesome Christmas adjacent movies, some deep dives, the best Christmas toys that built the 80s and the 90s. Lots of stuff coming out between now and Christmas, and I'm excited to share it all with you. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And until next time, be kind, rewind. Like always, this is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Is it all real? Genuine. In all this world, there is nothing else real and abiding. No Santa Claus? Thank God he lives. He lives forever. 1,000 years from now. 10 times 10,000 years from now. He will continue to make glad the heart of childhood. Happy Christmas to all, and to all of you.
God bless him, everyone.
I know.